Are you disappointed if he comes back without a deal?
No, not at all, because we already made a great deal. We're not doing business with China right now.
Have you given Bessent a number of how low you're willing to go?
Yeah, I am.
Are you willing to share that number?
No, but I put out a number today, 80%, so we'll see how that all works out.
President Trump disclosing details of his marching orders to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who's in Switzerland today for tariff meetings with Chinese officials. U.S.-China talks are taking place while Chinese President Xi Jinping is wrapping up a 4-day visit to Russia. Joining us now, Tom Nichols, staff writer at The Atlantic and professor emeritus at the U.S. Naval War College and instructor at the Harvard Extension School. Tom, what is your read on how Bessent's negotiations are likely to go? And how do you interpret what we're seeing from the Chinese side, especially from President Xi?
Well, President Xi being sitting by Putin's side in Russia tells you a lot about the kind of realignment that's going on because of Donald Trump's unpredictability. Victory Day is a big deal in Moscow, but this is more than just showing up for as a foreign dignitary. I mean, this is part of it's a message, and it's basically saying that Donald Trump wants to be unpredictable and difficult. That there are other arrangements to be made in the world. As for what's going to happen in Switzerland, all of that always depends on one person, and that's Donald Trump. The secretary can make all the deals and do all the discussion he wants to do in Switzerland. But, remember, Donald Trump can blow up everything with one tweet, one post, one stray comment, which is why we've been in this very difficult situation for weeks now.
Well, and speaking of that uncertainty, Scott Bessent has called this back and forth from the president on tariffs, quote, strategic uncertainty. Is that what you would call it? Because as we just mentioned, he did post yesterday this new 80% tariff number, which folks we've spoken to today says is basically not changed. It's functionally the same as the 160, 140, whatever that number is. It's still going to have the same impact. It doesn't make that big of a difference.
No, another way to think of this strategic uncertainty is the we don't know what we're doing uncertainty. This is all happening because Donald Trump has a theory about tariffs that he has held to for 40 years. He genuinely believes that they do things that they don't actually do. He's been wanting to prove that he's right about this for decades. In his first term, he wanted to go this road, and fortunately, there were more sensible people around him who said, told him not to do it, and were able to warn him off of it. So this is now Donald Trump saying, I'm going to get my way. There's nobody who can tell me no. And I'm going to try this thing that I've always wanted to do. And of course, it's blowing up in his face. And so now he's cycling through numbers. Well, it's not 145%, it's 80%. But as so many analysts have pointed out, that's such a high number that's functionally equivalent to, 1,000,000%, to just a number where things aren't going to move and goods aren't going to make it to the United States. So, this is now, you can see it in the president's answers when he's asked about this, where he just can't bring himself to say, I don't really know. And he says, I've got a number, it's 80, we'll see what happens. But where this goes really depends on how long he's willing to court this kind of economic risk.
Well, and even the Chinese government said when they were having that tit for tat and the numbers kept going up, we're not raising it any more than this because it's not going to make any difference. The impact is what it is. I also want to ask you, we have this interesting development. President Trump has said today that the U.S. helped broker the ceasefire agreement between Pakistan and India. You've been writing about this conflict. What are you hearing? Because Pakistan and India are saying, no, we worked this out ourselves. Was the White House involved, and did they have the right approach here, or did something else happen?
Well, it doesn't look like the White House was involved. It may have been that, Marco Rubio's been involved by making phone calls, but I suspect what happened, given the early reports that we have, are two nuclear powers who were in a series of violent confrontations for quite a while now, several days, decided to step back before things got too far out of control, which is, as I wrote in that article, often what nuclear powers will do when things start to get kind of dicey and hairy. But the idea that somehow the Trump administration brokered an agreement I don't think there's any evidence for that. But again, this White House would take credit for good weather. So who knows? But clearly, Secretary Rubio tried to work the phones, been trying to be involved. But I at this point, I think it's too much of a stretch to say that that's what happened.
All right, maybe some encouraging words over the phone. I also want to ask you, as the administration says it's considering suspending habeas corpus, you've got political scientists who are monitoring the concept of Trump embarking on what they're calling a slow march towards authoritarianism. There was this op-ed from 3 professors in the New York Times that argued that authoritarianism is actually getting harder to recognize because leaders are doing it within the democratic institutions. And rather than violently suppressing the opposition, today's autocrats are converting public institutions into political weapons, using law enforcement, tax, regulatory agencies, all of this to punish opponents and bully the media and civil society onto the sidelines. As you look at what's happening and the policies being pushed, do you see evidence that President Trump is heading in this direction?
As a former working political scientist myself, I would say it's not a slow march. It's more like a quick sprint with mixed results. I think a lot of the things that the Trump administration and other autocrats around the world do are exactly as these other political scientists pointed out. They use the existing institutions to leverage power over other people in a way that that these institutions really weren't designed to do. And I think it's important for people to understand that democracy and the American Constitution and democratic processes tend to rely on informal norms and agreements rather than black letter law. The reason that we do most things is not because we are legally obligated to do them by the Constitution, but rather because in a democracy, we prize those things in the Constitution and we do them anyway. We don't suspend habeas corpus, not because we're not supposed to, or because the law would prohibit it, but because in a democracy, you don't suspend habeas corpus unless you're in times of war, civil insurrection. And I think what you're seeing from this administration is using the institutions of law, of the economy, of regulatory agencies to attack and punish people that they want to drive from the public space. And they can do that within a certain legal framework. And really, the only guardrail against that is the people, the voters.
But speaking of the people, when I talk to leaders in Europe, in the Middle East, even friends who grew up in authoritative places like Turkey, they express so much shock to me that there is not more backlash from the American public, that you're not seeing a greater outcry about what's happening. Is it because of what you just talked about, because the things that are being done under the facade of these democratic institutions? Is that why for some people it's flying under the radar?
Well, there's actually a worse explanation for it. Part of the problem is that tens of millions of people think it's perfectly okay now to use the instruments of government against people you don't happen to like. And that's a big part of the problem, is that some of what Trump is doing is just popular with a certain amount of people who don't think that these things could ever be turned around and happen to them if those instruments of government were used against them. But there's a bigger problem, which is that we live with a very high standard of living on our day-to-day life. Everything works. Our gas tanks are full. The grocery stores shelves are stocked.
The water comes out of the tap.
Wi-Fi is strong, and people just say, "Well, how bad could it be?"
Yeah.
And it doesn't get bad until the day it happens, and then I think people find themselves surprised.
All right, Tom Nichols, thank you so much for all that.